Off-season analysis, again provided by Buford Jordan. Buford, a toy cook, is he worth those kind of dollars? He can't be realistic when he says that, right?
Well,
$1.5 million a year?
Yeah, he's talking a lot of money. I think the Saints are going to let him go out there and try himself in the market and see if he can really get that kind of money.
Now, settle the issue for us. Coaches, was the problem coaching or was the problem players? Now, Paul Boudreau is gone. Carl Smith has talked to the New York Jets about their offensive coordinator's position. I know the coaches are under fire, but coaches or players?
I think it was both, a combination of both, you know, bad play calling, and also players, you know, made a lot of turnovers that cost them and put them in bad situations.
Now, Carl Smith, again, is interviewed for the Jets job. He had to get permission from the Saints to do it. Your read on that? If they offer the job, is he gone?
I think he's going to be gone, you know, especially with, you know, the criticism he's had here. I think he's going to take the job. But, you know, he's up probably with 5 or 6 other people that's up for that same job, so he's in the running for it.
The fact that he's interviewed, does that mean he has credentials? I know he's come under a lot of fire here.
Oh, yeah, I don't think people are going to waste time bringing somebody in to talk to him if they're not under serious consideration, so I think he does have some credentials. Are
you available? Would you accept the job?
Oh, definitely. Give it to
me. They come out the single way, huh? Yeah. All right, Hugh, thanks. We'll see you next week. We'll talk about Super Bowl 28. LSU installment.
I was a member of the 1984 New Orleans Breakers of the USFL. I hail from the same hometown as Fred McAfee. Who am I? I'm Marcus Dupree of the New Orleans Breakers. Also,
what's up, Buford Jordan? Doug, a quick rundown of the top quarterback prospects.
Yeah, okay, we'll go through the top quarterbacks. Now, this list is very much subject to change over the next 3 months. The top 2 are Heath Shuler of Tennessee and Trent Dilfer of Fresno State. Give Shuler the slight edge, but both are excellent prospects and should go in the top 5 picks of the draft. Nussmeier is the best of the rest. Then comes Glenn Foley of Boston College, a proven winner without great physical skills, and Perry Klein of the Division II CW Post Pioneers in New York. Klein has the physical skills, but is unproven, and clearly, Ed, he needs a lot of work. Now, Bill Koharic and company will spend the next 3 months deciding whether one of those guys is good enough to be that quarterback of the future.
Unfortunately, Buford Jordan does not have 3 months to mull over his Super Bowl pick. Buford, does Buffalo have a chance in this game?
I see it hard. The only way they'd not have a chance is if Troy Aikman didn't play this week, and I don't think that's going to happen. That's the only chance I really see of them winning.
Now, 52-17 was the score in last year's game. Dallas routing Buffalo. Would have been worse except for Leon Lett. 8.5 points was the early line favoring Dallas. What do you think, Doug? Make a pick.
I think Dallas is 2 touchdowns better than anybody in the NFL. I thought they were last year, and I thought they have been all year. I can't see picking against Dallas.
So they'll win and they'll cover, right?
Well, I wouldn't bet it, but
come on, Doug.
But hey.
Go on the line a little bit.
Well, then I'd say they'll win and they'll cover.
Buford, they'll win and they'll cover?
They'll win. You know, Emmett, I look for Emmett to have the game Thurman had this past week, so I think Dallas is going to be the winner.
Well, I'd love to disagree with you guys. You know how much I like to do that, but I can't. So I'll go with Dallas and spot the points, too.
In 1992, I qualified to make the Olympic team at Tad Gormley Stadium and went on from there to Barcelona to have a golden moment. Hi, I'm Carl Lewis, and in 1992 in Barcelona, I brought home the gold medal in the long jump, as well as a gold medal anchoring the 4x100 meter relay.
Carl Lewis.
It's fun, you know.
Pro Bowl this year, guys. Kickoff for that Pro Bowl is 7 o'clock Central Time Sunday night. But February 18th is a date Saints fans are looking forward to. That's when NFL teams can start signing free agents. Now, 2 of the Saints' biggest free agents are in Hawaii for the Pro Bowl. Linebackers Ronaldo Turnbull and R.Jackson. Jackson left New Orleans after the last game, saying he would not be back with the Saints next year. He and Turnbull talked about the upcoming bidding war.
I've been with the Saints for 13 years, so I'm always have the Saints in my heart, but it's just like anything else. It's a business, so I'm going to see what's happening.
Now, it's going to be kind of, you know, interesting this year with free agency and a lot of players being free agents and having the opportunity to travel to see exactly how this whole thing's going to play out. But, you know, I think for the most part, if guys are happy where they are, you know, they'll try to work things out, and I think the teams will too.
You can bet both of those players will get offers from other teams. It'll be interesting to see how much they'll get with the salary cap looming and how much the Saints will be willing to spend to keep them.
position, Ed. The question.
Joe Theismann and our entire ESPN crew. This is Mike Patrick. Good night from Honolulu. Sports Center is next.
Joining us to talk Saints free agency is WWL and WSMB Radio's K.Trahan. Ken, looking at the quarterback situation with the Saints, we've looked at some of the veteran free agents out there. There's not a lot of gems out there, is it? What do you do?
Well, there's no question they'll try to upgrade the position, Ed. The question is how they're going to do it. My take on it is very simple. If they go after a veteran free agent quarterback, in my estimation, that means Wade Wilson is gone. If they choose to try to address the need through the draft, then I think Steve Walsh will probably be gone, although they'll probably pay him that bonus initially and keep him around and maybe try to make a deal or let him go in training camp if that's the case.
If you draft a young quarterback, do the Saints play a rookie quarterback in 1994? And Jim Mora, he's got 2 years left on his contract. Obviously, I think that they have to get something accomplished in the next 2 years, right?
Yeah, the answer to your question is no. If they draft a rookie quarterback, Wade Wilson will be the starting quarterback in 1994, hands down. He'll be here for a year to groom that particular person, whoever that might be, and that's why I have the opinion I have on it. Free agency, Wade Wilson is gone. Rookie, Steve Walsh is gone. I just think it depends on what they do, but no, they won't start a rookie next year.
But if they start Wade Wilson, can they expect to improve?
Well, I guess the answer to that is, you know, you have to draw your own conclusions. Do you improve around him, Ed?
Right.
Do you get Anthony Miller here? Do you get Michael Haynes here? Do you get another player that can make an impact somewhere else along your offense? I think in all likelihood they're going to try to incorporate Jim Dombrowski in the mix next year, which they didn't do this past year. You have to read a little bit into Paul Boudreau where that's concerned. I think in addition to that, they have a decision to make with Joel Hilgenberg. Question is, do they have anybody else to play that position? The answer might be no at this point, so they might have him back if they can get him back. He's not happy about losing that transitional status. And speaking of which, do you think they should have, it's my turn to ask a question,
Sure.
Should they have a franchise player in your estimation?
No. I wouldn't use it. Absolutely not.
Okay.
I don't see anybody out there that they don't have under contract that they would use as a franchise player. Can't use it on Ricky Jackson. That'd be ludicrous, a 13-year player. I just don't see it.
I agree with you, and except for this, Ronaldo Turnbull obviously having some problems in negotiations right now. They've got to get him signed, Ed. At this point, if he's not designated as a franchise player, it certainly should be pointed out that he is a franchise-type player. Age, ability, contribution, future, all a consideration. He's the guy at this point.
One guy that's interested me, we've got about a minute left, is Brad Muster. A lot of speculation that he won't be back. Lorenzo Neal was a fine-looking rookie, but he's played a game and a half. He's coming off a major injury to his ankle. I mean, I don't see Brad Muster out of here, do you?
Well, it's possible. Salary structure may dictate
at least
that.
Not right now. I'm talking about after training camp,
sure.
maybe.
No, I agree with you. I think they have to bring him to camp. I have all the accolades like everyone else has for what I've seen of Lorenzo Neal, but what I've seen of him is a game and a half in the NFL, basically. He's a fourth-round draft pick, and the Saints obviously did a great job of finding this talent and bringing him in, but he's coming off of a severe injury. Aside from that, you can't possibly put him up on a pedestal and say he's going to be a great NFL fullback at this point. I think it's a gamble to go in with just Lorenzo Neal and Derek Ned. That's why Brad Muster, at least in their minds, is an insurance policy. Financially, might not be feasible long-term, but in the short term, I think he will be here.
Okay, Ken. Appreciate your thoughts.
My pleasure.
See you again soon. Back with Doug Mouton, checking in on another...
Come a long way over the years, and he's witnessed a lot of LSU football. He's seen the school's greatest players and was a member of its most famous team, the national champs of 1958.
Now in his 49th year at LSU, Dr. Broussard's seen it all here at Tiger Stadium, but one of his fondest memories by far happened on Halloween night, 1959.
Stands on his own 28. He gets a pass from center. He boots it and gets another nice kick away going way downfield. Billy Cannon watches it bounce. He takes it on his own 11. He comes back upfield to the 15, stumbles momentarily. He's at the 20, running hard at the 25, gets away.
I had taken the posture, really, at that part of the ball game that we weren't going to win. They punted to Billy, and he received a punt and made one of the fine runs of all times, you know.
What's happened thus far with the Saints in free agency? We turn to our analyst, B.Jordan. Sam Mills is apparently unhappy about the initial contract offer. A lot of guys, you think, quietly upset about the Turnbull deal?
I think so. You know, these guys are looking at Ronaldo had one good year and got the contract he did. You know, so you're going to have some upset players that have played here a couple of years.
But what they have to understand is it's a game of leverage, right?
It really is. And right now, like they said, Ronaldo had the most leverage going into the free agency. So
about $3 million a year worth. Now, Gene Atkins, as we said, was back in town after signing with the Miami Dolphins for $6 million plus. He talked about Saints Vice President Jim Miller as Gene spoke with our Alexander Laurent exclusively.
I just feel like if Coach Moore had a little bit more input in this deal, I think that things would have worked out for me. But since I think Miller had a lot to do with it, I just think that Miller just said, hey, we could find a safety, we don't have to pay that much, and get him to try to do the same thing Gene did. And hopefully they have some young talent in there who can do it.
Buford, basically, this was a salary cap loss. The Saints apparently just couldn't afford to pay Gene Atkins.
That's exactly it, and I think what's going to happen, you're going to see that with a lot of other guys, because they can't afford to pay bonuses plus an increased salary.
Eric Kramer signed today with the Bears, 3 years, $8.1 million. Is he that good a quarterback?
He showed some promise. I don't really think he's that good, but I think, you know, he could work out there.
Okay, we'll see if the Saints sign a veteran quarterback.
We need one.
I think that's the understatement of the century. But right you are, my friend. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Ed.
Former Saints safety and special team star Benny Thompson. For courage. For answers, we turn not to the yellow brick road, but to our Saints analyst, Buford Jordan. Welcome, my friend. What do you think of the deal?
I think they got a great deal. You know, I only have to give up a 7th round draft choice for a quarterback that was drafted first. That's a great deal.
Can he still play?
I think he can. You know, I think over the years he's just lost some confidence with the team he's been with. They haven't been one of the best teams in the league. What, 3 and, you know, whatever.
3 and 13 one year,
yeah,
a little bit better next year.
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, they haven't really had a good team the last couple of years.
You've heard all the criticisms of Everett. You've seen him on the field across the sideline from him. Happy feet, doesn't want to stay in there and take a hit. All of those things, bad rap or true?
I think it's kind of a bad rap. You know, the thing is, the guy's with a team where, you know, people were coming at him 15 times a game free, and, you know, he was taking some pretty good shots. So, you know, after a while, the guy gets to the point where he's going to see a man coming free. He's going to, you know, hit the ground or move out the pocket. So, I mean, you know, you just have to kind of be in his situation to understand it.
So your read on it, to paraphrase, would be a good quarterback who's lost confidence, who was on a bad football team.
Exactly. I think the thing is, you know, he was with a team where he could put 20-something points on the board, but the defense would allow 30. So, you know, thing is, he really didn't have a back or nobody to help him. So, you know, I expect him to have a good season here.
Play devil's advocate, if I can, for a minute with you. Why would the Rams, if this guy can still play, why would they trade him, give him away basically to a team in their own division?
I think the thing was they just wanted to get something out of the deal, you know, because at one time, you know, they were ready to release Everett, you know, completely, but they figured they'd hold on to him to get something out of it, you know, and they did get a 7th round draft choice.
Saints will now have Everett and Haynes. Will they throw it over the top?
I hope they will, because, you know, the thing is, Everett has the equipment. You know, he can throw long and he can throw hard, and Michael Haynes can go out there and get it. Thing is Saints have to be able to utilize these people's talent and, you know, go to them and change some offensive things.
All right, my friend. Good to have you with us again.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here.
All righty. The Saints can only hope for the same production from this year's #1. Manager Chris Bando was in town beginning Tuesday for Meet the Zephyrs night. The Zephyrs skipper answered fans' questions about the upcoming season and says he's optimistic about his 1994 squad.
Yeah, I think the Saints' new quarterback had every right to feel like this media sludge was daring him to react, and to Everett's credit, he did.
We're sitting here right now, and if you guys want to take a station break, you can. But if you call me Chris Everett to my face one more time...
I already did it twice.
If you call it one more time, we better take a station break.
Well, it's a 5-minute segment, or 5-segment show. We got a long way to go.
Well, we do.
We got a long way to go.
We do.
I'll get a couple segments out of you before.
Well, it's good to be here with you, though.
Well, it's good to see you, too.
Because you've been talking like this behind my back for a long time.
But now I said it right here.
Right, exactly.
Well, we got no problem with that.
I think that you probably won't say it again.
I bet I do.
Okay.
Chris?
Well, What I saw was provocation for the sake of provocation. He was totally smug, this Rome guy, with no apologies, and I guess that's what Jim Rome's idea is of being hip. Meanwhile, at the Saints camp
Club this year, Tonight Show with Jay Leno, featuring Branford Marsalis and the Tonight Show Band. Tonight, Jay welcomes Katie Couric, quarterback Jim Everett, and the music of Cocteau Twins. I'm Ed Hall, and now, Jay Leno.
All righty. My next guest is my sports hero of the week, ladies and gentlemen. He holds several passing records for the Los Angeles Rams, where he was starting quarterback for the last 8 years. This season, he'll be playing for Brentford's team, the New Orleans Saints. But even if you're not a football fan, you probably saw him on the news this week while being interviewed on a live cable sports show. He took matters into his own hands after being taunted by the interviewer, who kept calling him Chris Everett instead of Jim Everett. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, what do you got for me, Katie? Oh, thank you very much. Look what Katie has here, ladies and gentlemen. Here we go. Please welcome Jim Everett. It's the Bernie Getz of football, ladies and gentlemen. No, but see, everybody, I think, is on your side. We should explain this. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back. Now, before we show the clip, why don't you explain to people exactly what happened?
In a nutshell, he referred to me as Chris Everett, and he's been doing it for a few years.
Like a long time, a couple of years, yeah.
Yeah, and in reference for me not being able to take a hit in the pocket.
Oh, okay.
I mean, that's the deal. So it's a sissy type thing, and so this has been the first time I had a chance to meet him, and I wanted to meet him, and I wanted to have a chance, you know, since I've been traded, to talk to one of my biggest critics.
Right.
And I thought we were going to be in a question and answer format, and they actually informed me that we were going to have a chance to talk about Chris. And I thought he would bring it up once, but then it was twice, and then it was a warning, and then, you know, from there, I just...
Well, let's take a look. Let's show the audience. If you haven't seen this, let's take a look. Here it is right here. Here's the clip.
A member of the Saints. Jim, good to have you on the show.
Good to be here, Jim. Thank you.
Check that. Chris Everett, good to have you on the show.
You know what? You know, you've been calling me that for about the last 5 years.
About 2 years, actually, Chris.
Well, hey, you know what? Let me say one thing. In that game, how many sacks did I have that we came back and won?
How many sacks did you have?
How many sacks?
Well, see, but this was back in 1989.
Oh, that was
see, you may have even been Jim Everett back there, but somewhere along the way, Jim, you ceased being Jim and you became Chris.
Well, let me tell you a little secret. That, you know, we're sitting here right now, and if you guys want to take a station break, you can. But if you call me Chris Everett to my face one more time...
I already did it twice.
If you call it one more time, we better take a station break.
Well, it's a 5-minute segment. Our 5-segment show. We got a long way to go.
Well, we do.
We got a long way to go.
We do.
I'll get a couple segments out of you before.
Well, it's good to be here with you, though.
Well, it's good to see you, too.
Because you've been talking like this behind my back for a long time.
But now I said it right here.
Right, exactly.
Well, we got no problems
then. I think that you probably won't say it again.
I bet I do.
Okay.
Chris?
What I thought was great, and I think something that most people missed is you were a gentleman. You didn't hit him, because if you would have hit him, you'd have killed this guy.
Well,
I mean, you pushed him, and I think you made your point.
he was laying there on the ground at the end when they cut, and, you know, like kitten you had out. It's kind of, you know, you can't. You give them the animal control, right?
Yeah.
It's the stuff like that.
So what's the reaction to people on the street today? You getting a lot of...
I have had calls from everybody. I've had calls from ex-teammates, and it's somewhat near the response that I got from you guys right here. The response that gets me, Jay, is, you know, my grandma wanted me to hit him, too.
Have you heard from Jim Rome? Have you spoken to him?
No, I haven't spoken to him.
Yeah.
But I know that he has cast an apology, which stands big for him.
Now, would you do his show again?
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Have you heard from Chris Everett?
No, I haven't heard from Chris Everett, but I heard there possibly is a mixed doubles with me and Chris against Jim and, I don't know.
That's funny. Now, this is also an exciting thing, because your wife is having a baby, like, just about any hour now.
She has been in labor, started yesterday, and it's the most exciting. I know you were sitting there talking about your child, and it's an amazing thing that, you know, I'm a football player. I should be used to these types of things, but, man, I'm nervous about this. And I can't, and right when this show's over, I am home. I am, and hopefully we'll have a...
and this is the first one, right?
This is the first one, and we know it's a little girl, and we're going to call her Alexa Lee Everett.
Oh, that's
and she will be the pride of my life.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. I'll bet the doctor be careful when he slaps that baby now.
As long as he doesn't call her Chris.
Yeah, they call her Chris. So now you're on your way to New Orleans.
That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, that was the thing that I really wanted to talk about in the interview that I had with Mr. Rome, was the fact that there's some great things going on in my life. I had played 8 years with the Los Angeles Rams, and I had a career that a lot of wins, some losses, and it had some good times, some bad times. But now I have a chance to go down to Brantford's. I wish he was here, but have a chance to go down there and play for the New Orleans Saints, who I think have a fine football organization. And now I know for a fact I'll be on a team with a great defense.
Is it odd playing against your old... Because you were with the Rams. That's the only team you ever were with, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's the only... In the pros, I've been 8 years with the Rams.
Right, 8 years. So is it odd when you go against them?
I've never had a chance to do it. But, you know, here I got traded. If New Orleans and the Rams are in the same division, right. And so I have a chance to play them twice a year. And I look forward to that. Are you going to miss L.A.? Because this is where you live. Well, this is home, and I've since moved to Las Vegas, and my parents there. All right. And Randall Cunningham lives out there, and there's some other guys, and we have a chance to play catch and get after it. But I look forward to the move. And, what do you think the fans are tougher, here or down in Louisiana? Well, I don't know. It's been pretty tough on Jim Everett right here. I mean, I got to admit that. But the fans down there get after it, and I think it has something to do with the Cajun food. Well, yeah, that could. It gets hot down there. Yeah. Oh, but it's a fun town. Oh, I like New Orleans. I like New Orleans. Listen, I'm glad you could come by, because I thought you were a real gentleman. I thought the real key to everything you did, as I said, is that you kind of did what you have to do. You didn't hit the man. You just kind of made your point. And I think, well, I like to see, I think people really get a kick out of that. You know, sometimes these reporters, they push people, and I know that was going on for a couple of years, and I thought you handled it great. And I just say congratulations on the new baby. Thank you very much. Yeah. Okay, coming up in the next few weeks. Wait, before I do that, Katie, have you ever wanted to do that? You ever wanted to just flip the table over on somebody, knock them down?
Oh, yes.
Really? Good, flip that table over. Let me see you do it. Go ahead, flip that table. Just flip. Just flip it. Go, just flip it. Katie, get mad. Get mad, Katie. Don't take the cuffs off. Just flip it. Just flip it. Yeah! She's fed up to here.
That sounds so good.
Coming up in the next couple of weeks, Kathleen Turner, Craig T. Nelson, Kerry Fisher, Director John Waters, Shelley Long, John Goodman, Mary Lou Henner, Drew Barrymore, and next week, Chevy Chase. Be right back with the Cocteau Twins right after
this. Was Jim Rome of ESPN2 in the wrong? Two guys who know wrong from right, our Saints analyst. That's what their mamas tell me anyhow. Buford Jordan and Doug Mouton join us. Buford, you saw the tape. What do you think? It wasn't staged, huh?
I don't think it was staged. You know, I think the guy went at him with good intent, but, you know, he really thought about the consequences if he really would have hit the guy.
It would have been time to call not Doug Mouton, but a famous attorney in town. Doug, what do you think? Staged?
No, I don't think it was staged. But at the same time, I don't think there's any excuse for a guy just to be that rude. I mean, what do you think, Ed? I mean, can you go in there and just be that rude to somebody?
Well, I've tried on occasion, Doug. You know, the guy was a jerk. He was way out of line. Bottom line on this thing, fellas, Jim Everett is a hero for the time being until he throws his first interception as a Saint, right?
I think he is. That made a lot of people have a little more confidence in him. A lot of people told me they didn't believe in him before, but after seeing that, they have a lot of confidence in him.
Doug, amazing that something like that could make people believe in a quarterback after all he's done and not done in the NFL, right?
And the funny thing is, this guy's been booed and hated in Los Angeles. He goes on the Tonight Show, and the crowd gives him practically a standing ovation because he attacked a little reporter. So this guy goes from hated to loved in this incident. It's the best PR thing for Jim Everett ever.
Maybe he ought to be on ESPN2 more often, huh? All right, let's hit a real problem. I thought the biggest collapse they had all year, they can talk all they want about other things, including quarterbacking, was teams just lined up and ran the ball at them, and they need defensive help, don't they?
They definitely do, and they're definitely going to have to get some young guys because you have Jim Wilkes, who may not be back this year, and Frank Warren, who's coming off an injury. You don't know how good he's going to be, so I think they have to get a couple of good defensive linemen in this draft.
Okay, gentlemen. Thank you very much. I look forward to the pre-draft specials on Saints Sideline, a special edition, Wednesday night, April 20th at 7 o'clock. Doug, get busy. Many WGNO staffers are...
Blue N, please.
The Blue N New Orleans Privateers for the first time.
The UNO Privateers compete in what intercollegiate conference?
What conference is UNO in? A, the Metro Conference, B, the Sun Belt Conference, or C, the Southeastern Conference?
B, the Sun Belt?
B, the Sun Belt. Yes, indeed. The Privateers are in the Sun Belt Conference. Here, the $20 for Jeff.
First round selection, Oklahoma running back Billy Sims. Saints take George Rogers of South Carolina.
I'm sure going to give my best.
New England selects Ken Sims.
Look out next year, the rest of you fellas.
Baltimore selects quarterback John Elway of Stanford. Patriots select Irving Fryer.
It's like a dream come true for me.
Buffalo selects defensive end Bruce Smith.
Bo Jackson, the #1 draft pick here with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Tampa selects on the first round Vinny Testaverde. Atlanta selects Andre Bruce. Dallas, Troy Aikman. We knew that Coy was our guy.
Indianapolis selects Jeff George. Dallas Cowboys have selected Russell Maryland. Colts' first choice is Steve Empman.
There's some excitement brewing in Indy.
Patriots select Drew Bledsoe, quarterback. The Bengals have selected Dan Wilkinson, defensive tackle, Ohio State University.
We'll keep our eyes here on what the Jets do behind the Saints. For the Saints, I mean, their defense used to be about the best in the National Football League, with those great linebackers and some good play up front. But now, except for Wayne Martin, Wilkes and Warren are very long in the tooth. This may be the place where they have to go. They picked Turnbull, the last defensive pick in the first round in 1990. Of course, he has become a Pro Bowler and an outstanding player, really stepping in for Swilling. But up front, if you don't get it done up front, all that great linebacker play, that becomes a little bit superfluous, Joe.
Well, you know, Boone, the thing that concerns me here, if they want to go to the offensive side of the ball, I think there's some receivers out there that'll be there to help them in the second round. You know, you got to consider Ricky Jackson. How many years has he played? Sam Mills. They're not going to be able to keep both of them because of the cap. So the defensive side of the ball, when you look at the age of that defensive line, really needs some help. I think Joe Johnson may not be the right slot for him, but I think here you can't worry about where a guy is maybe a little bit higher than you think. I think you've got to go after the quality of what you need on your ball club. Right now, to me, it's got to be D-line. I think they go wide receiver. They make a big mistake.
Mel, walk us through your defensive line board. What's left?
Well, there's some quality left, but it's... Okay, the Jets, having traded with New Orleans with the 12th pick in this first round, select Aaron Glenn, defensive back, Texas A&M.
He can step in. He can do that. Let's get the trade details
first.
Draft,
and the Jets gave New Orleans their fifth round selection in this draft, which is the 144th pick overall.
I didn't get that. Just the fifth? Is that what it was? To move up one slot, it was hurt. They hope that maybe Von Dunbar, #1 pick a couple of years ago, and some others come back and give themselves some sort of a running game to go along with their new quarterback, Jim Everett. Just yesterday, they signed Jeff Ulenek, the center from the Miami Dolphins, which essentially means that Joel Hilgenberg is out and Ulenek is in. And we mentioned Haynes in. Of course, they lose the safety Atkins, and they lose Kennard to Dallas. And so new quarterback, new receiver, hopefully healthy running back, new setter. The Saints now looking perhaps at defense. Joe?
You know, but the one thing about this trade that is intriguing to me is, and it's something we really haven't touched on, the commissioner has assigned compensatory draft picks into the 3rd, 4th, 5th round on down. When you give up a 5th round pick now in this draft, you're really not giving up a 5th round pick. You're giving up a 6th round pick because there's a lot of players and teams that have been slotted in. So this draft is truly not a 7-round draft. I really think it's an 8-round draft. That's what becomes unique when you see later round trades happening. I think the quality of the player is going to be more backup fill-ins. They're all going to make a ball club, but it's going to be as special teamers. So really what the Jets give up is they swap a place. That's about it.
Let's backtrack a little. The Jets picking Aaron Glenn, the 2nd DB gone today. Antonio Lynch, they allow for that. And the commissioner gets the selection.
The Saints have selected Joe Johnson, defensive end, Louisville. Philadelphia is next on the clock.
Well, that was one of the names you mentioned, Mel. Washington was on the phone, so you got to think that he's going to go pretty soon, either to Philly, who's next, the Rams, who are after that, or somebody who's going to trade up to go for him. But Joe Johnson now, what, 7 defenders in a row. The last time an offensive lineman didn't go this far was '87, when John 100 Pounds of Clay was chosen with the 15th pick in 1987. So yet no offensive lineman, and your thought on Joe Johnson?
I like him. I think he's a junior with a great upside. In the update that comes out right before the draft, I rated him the defensive lineman with the best long-range potential. He was 255, 260 as a sophomore, got up to about 285 as a junior this year for Howard Schnellenberger, and did a great job pressuring quarterbacks and getting into the backfield. 23 times he broke loose and fired into the backfield to disrupt the play. Here he nails Charlie Garner from Tennessee. You see a guy that got bigger and got faster. His 40 times before the draft were in the 4.98 range, which is remarkable for a kid, 285 pounds. You also have to take into consideration his age. He's only 21 years old. He's got a lot of football ahead. The Saints picked up that 5th round pick by moving down to 1 spot. Still got Joe Johnson. So I think hats off to Jim Mora for using the draft process correctly.
All right, Mel, let's think. Defensive player, Louisville. You know where we're going. Let's go to New England and check in with Tom.
The prospects are ready. The NFL draft is just 4 days away. Who will the Saints pick? Will they take one of the premier defensive linemen, like Texas A&M's Sam Adams, Notre Dame's Bryce Young, or Louisville's Joe Johnson? Will they go for the quarterback of the future, like Heisman Trophy winner Charlie Ward? We'll evaluate a smorgasbord of eligible talent, including New Orleans' own Marshall Faulk, John Jackson, and Johnny Dixon, as well as Louisiana's best, the incredible John Theory, and the massive Marcus Spears. We'll review the Saints' 1993 draft and update NFL free agency. Plus, we'll go on the bench with Buford Jordan and take a special trip to Tom Benson's little piece of Texas. All that and a whole lot more on the Saints Sideline Special Edition next.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Saints Sideline Special Edition. I'm Ed Daniels.
I'm Alexander Leroy. Fast Eddie, the salary cap goes on the back burner just for the weekend. It's time to concentrate on the draft.
And I'm going to miss it. I really enjoy talking about the salary cap. You're right, it is time to talk about the draft. And once again, we've got 2 of the nation's best draft analysts aboard to help us grade the prospects. In this corner from Cajun country in southern Louisiana, Matthews, Louisiana, it's Mike Detillier. Mike's been in the draft business for 9 years with his M&D draft report. And from Baltimore, it's the kingpin of draft analysts, Mel Kiper. Mel's been printing his book for 16 years now. Kiper is also ESPN's official draft analyst. And the draft continues to change. This year, it's shortened again from 8 rounds to 7.
Saints' first pick is the 12th overall. Yesterday, they won an appeal which moved them up 5 places in round 2. That's now the 44th overall pick. The round 3 selection is the 79th overall. They also have their regular selections in rounds 4, 5, 6, and 7.
The Saints have already traded away next year's 7th-round pick. They did it to get Jim Everett from the Rams. All in all, though, it's been a surprisingly inactive offseason. The flood of free agents changing teams just hasn't happened.
They've lost 2, and they've gained 1. It's not exactly the big-time movement the players were hoping for when they got free agency.
Really, we're going down a new road here, and I didn't know how it's going to shake down.
Derek Kennard and Gene Atkins are the only Saints to escape a little thing called the salary cap. Atkins struck his deal with Miami early when the money was still out there. Kennard got his deal in Dallas after the Cowboys lost key members of their offensive line. The Saints wisely chose to spend theirs on Michael Haynes. We have to find out if there's enough left to keep guys like Sam Mills and Ricky Jackson. The Saints will have a new quarterback in '94. A trade has brought Jim Everett to New Orleans. For the first time in his career with the Rams, Everett found himself on the bench last year. Is the criticism fair? Is Jim Everett a shell-shocked quarterback? Clearly, at times, he's been quick to give in to pressure, like here in '91.
I think Everett did have some mental breakdowns in parts of games where he was more concerned about the rush than he was in picking up secondary receivers, but he didn't have a lot of time to look downfield.
Chris? His image got a lift when he pushed over ESPN's Jim Rome. In fact, he was even cheered in L.A. on The Tonight Show.
I called Jim up afterwards and asked him if I could be his manager, because I think he could make a lot of money from that. But seriously, you know, being a media person doesn't give you a right to attack someone's manhood, and if you do, you know, you're liable to get in trouble. And I'm glad Jim stopped when he did. I think he made his point and didn't carry it far enough to become a derogatory situation from his standpoint.
And Ted Franklin also said that they're not done signing free agents, so just don't you worry.
I'm not going to worry. I have a contract. So
Yeah.
Hey, you got a contract, you don't worry, all right? At least not for now.
Exactly.
After this show, that may change, though. Obviously, with Derek Kennard gone, the Saints will need help on the offensive line. It amazes me in a year how their opinion of Joel Hilgenberg has changed from a transition player to a guy that they're actively looking to replace. Back in a minute.
Coming up next, we'll look back at that special week in Mobile and meet some of the top prospects at the Senior Bowl.
And Doug Mouton will show us what's out there if the Saints go shopping for a young quarterback. But first, here's a look at our top wide receivers and tight ends in the draft. Stick around for more of the Saints Sideline Special Edition.
Saints Sideline preview.
And according to Bill Q. Howard, the strongest areas of the draft are running back and outside linebacker, but overall, it's a pretty deep draft.
And the Saints could maybe use some help at the outside linebacker spot. We'll see how that works out. Of course, the best at every position spent a week in January in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. It's one of the strangest sporting events they play in January. It's news in April. How did the best of the best rate at the Senior Bowl? Richie Kotite and his Philadelphia Eagles staff, coach the North team. Don Shula and the Dolphins were at the controls of the South team. Shula's team jumped up early. Idaho quarterback Doug Nussmeier gets great protection, rolls and finds Auburn fullback Tony Richardson wide open in the end zone. The South led 14-3 on the ensuing kickoff. Watch this effort by Notre Dame's Lake Dawson. The knock on him, he wasn't a game breaker, but he does a great imitation of one here. Lake Dawson is off to the races, 99 yards for a score. He probably pushed himself into the second round of the draft, and he got the North close at 14-10. Third quarter now, 21-10 South, when Auburn's Stan White finds big Lonnie Johnson wide open. Florida State tight end rumbles in 25 yards. It was 28-10. North rallies. Marvin Graves of Syracuse goes deep to Michigan's Derek Alexander. Beautiful catch, set up a short touchdown, and the North went up 32-28. But the South never quit. Stan White with the perfect strike to Kevin Lee. Auburn to Alabama. Hard to believe, but it's the game winner, and the South wins 35-32.
The big winner at the Senior Bowl turned out to be Tennessee's running back Charlie Garner. Garner was outstanding, rushing 17 times for 128 yards. He was the runaway choice as the game's MVP. Another running back getting high marks in Mobile was LaShawn Johnson of Northern Illinois, nicknamed Cowboy because he was a high school rodeo star. Johnson showed the explosive burst that led the nation in rushing last year. He and Charlie Garner are now considered the second and third best running backs in the draft after Marshall Faulk. North Carolina's Bucky Brooks moved up the wide receiver chart with a knack for the outstanding shoestring catch. Getting this one in practice, he then did it again here in the game. Brooks runs the 40 in 4.35 seconds and is probably the most athletic wide receiver in the draft. And two offensive linemen really helped their causes in Mobile. Auburn's Wayne Gandy, number 74 here, established himself as a solid first-rounder. The Saints will have to give Gandy serious consideration in the first round. And LSU's Kevin Mawai is also moving up. His impressive week now has the experts rating him as one of the top 2 or 3 centers in the draft.
We'll talk to Mawai and his LSU teammate Harold Bishop later in the hour. It's now time to begin our look at Louisiana's best. We start with Scotlandville, Louisiana native Marcus Spears.
Physically, Marcus Spears has it all. He's 6'4", 295, and light on his feet, a lot like the Saints' William Rote. He had a terrific career at Northwestern State, but coming out of high school, he was not a big-time recruit. In fact, only 2 schools offered scholarships, a lot like the Saints' William Rote.
People compare me to him, and that's an honor for me. I'm not quite at his level, I don't think, yet, but hopefully I can get there.
Athletic standpoint, you could favorably compare him to William Rote, athletically. From a technique-wise and the instincts part of playing offensive line, he falls off, and that's hurt him a lot. But offensive linemen with talent usually don't last very long. I think he'll probably go in the middle part of the second round.
Spears spent his week at the Senior Bowl just trying to fit in.
Get out here with these guys from these big name schools, and I can see I can hang with them, and that was on my mind at one time, but it's not anymore. It's not a problem for me at all now.
The first year, I think he's basically going to have a redshirt year. I think he's going to basically be redshirted and used sparingly and have a lot of technique work, but he's a good kid. He's a very willing learner, and he's got a very bright future if he works at it.
With William Rote and Richard Cooper, the Saints probably won't be looking at tackles in the first few rounds of the draft, but they may be looking for a quarterback. Jim Everett is 31 and clearly not the long-range answer. The top 2 quarterbacks in the draft, Heath Shuler of Tennessee and Fresno State's Trent Dilfer, will both be long off the board before the Saints pick. Doug Mouton shows us the rest of the quarterback prospects.
After Shuler and Dilfer, very little separates the next dozen guys. Still, it's a good year to go shopping for a developmental quarterback.
A tremendous year, because I think history has proven that with Neil O'Donnell's success, with Boomer Esiason in the second round, Mark Rippon goes in the 6th, wins a Super Bowl, Rodney Peete goes in the 6th, John Freeze. A lot of good quarterbacks have gone down the line a little bit. And I think this year you're going to see a lot of those 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th quarterbacks that are eventually going to be starters in the NFL.
The highest rated of the batch is Boston College's Glenn Foley.
From an athletic point of view, he reminds me a lot of Jim McMahon, in that he's not the biggest guy around, doesn't have the strongest arm, but he plays in a real nice, tight pro offense that is geared to throwing the short pass, and when he's on, he is very difficult to stop. I think he'll be a mid-second round pick.
Foley should be the first quarterback taken after Shuler and Dilfer, but the real question is, of this huge batch of guys, who'll be the best NFL quarterback 5 years from now? My guess is the guy who won the Heisman Trophy, Charlie Ward. Sure, he's short for an NFL quarterback, and he needs work, but the bottom line is he makes plays, and he makes the players around him better, and he's awfully fun to watch. Mel Kiper's choice as the best long-range prospect is this guy, Howard's Jay Walker, Walker's an interesting story. His godfather is former Ram quarterback James Harris, and he plays a lot like his godfather. He needs work, and he has to lay off the donuts, but this guy has big-time ability.
You take some weight off of Jay Walker, you have a good quarterback coach who can work with him. He's got a lot of raw talent.
Mike Detilier's pick is Perry Klein of tiny C.W. Post University in New York. Physically, Klein is the best of the bunch, but he's very raw. He only played 1 year of college ball at a Division III school.
Football's the same wherever you go. You know, the size and speed are factors that are the big difference. But at a quarterback position, you can really get a guy from a smaller school because a 12-yard out's a 12-yard out, you know.
Among the quarterback choices are a couple lefties. Memphis State's Steve Matthews was considered one of the top guys until a broken leg cut short his season. He's still a medical question mark. And Idaho's Doug Nussmeier is the third most efficient quarterback in NCAA history, and he's not afraid to tuck it under and run.
He's a very accurate passer, but again, I think a lot of the mechanics need to be worked on, and he is a runner. He's not a scrambler, and a lot of times he takes on defenders downfield. He won't do that too many times in the NFL before they start breaking out the smelling salts to revive him.
Marvin Graves' NFL chances were revived at the Senior Bowl. The former Syracuse star was very impressive in Mobile. A couple other guys who will get their call on draft day are East Texas State's Clint Dolezal and Tulsa's Gus Farrar. But the guy with the best attitude of them all is Michigan State's Jim Miller.
The way I look at it, I just want a shot somewhere, you know, then the ball's in my court and I'll take care of the rest. I mean, the way I kind of look at it is I don't have any money now, so I'm not going to miss it.
Miller will get his chance to earn the bucks. All these guys will. The secret will be picking the right one. I'm Doug Mouton for the Saints Sideline Special Edition.
Marshall Faulk is over.
Up next, we'll go one-on-one with a pair of New Orleans running backs. Starting at the top with Carver High's Marshall Faulk.
And we'll hear from St. Augustine's Sean Jackson when the Saints Sideline Special Edition continues.
When Marshall Faulk left Carver High School 3 years ago, few people believed he would become the nation's premier college running back. They certainly didn't believe it at LSU and at other places where Marshall was recruited to play defensive back. But Faulk has surpassed all expectations and stands to become a rich man as soon as Sunday.
Faster than Emmitt Smith, quicker than Thurman Thomas. That say the scouts of New Orleans native Marshall Faulk. A 5'10", 205-pound package who's clocked under 4.4 seconds in the 40.
45-50, streaks down the sideline, gonna go all the way. Touchdown.
Getting hit wasn't my thing, so you got to have the moves to make a miss, and it was a thing that just came natural to me, and I carried it over to football.
If Marshall Faulk had his pick of cities, he'd pick his hometown. He'd play right here in New Orleans. But the chances of that happening are not very good. Marshall Faulk would have to slide to the 12th pick, or the Saints would have to move up to get it.
When the Saints moved up to pick William Roaf, they had a marketable commodity, Pat Swilling, to deal to Detroit. This year, the Saints don't have any such luxury.
I would love to play in front of my family, in front of my friends, my peers, my high school teachers, my elementary teachers. Love to give all of them tickets and watch me play.
There's little chance Faulk will be this year's Vaughn Dunbar, whose big slide on draft day allowed the Saints to get their hands on the then Big Ten rushing leader. Marshall Faulk is no Vaughn Dunbar. Faulk can flat out fly. And for once, when you hear an agent rave about his client, you tend to believe him.
Touchdown!
I live in St. Louis, and this past year we had what they call a 100-year flood, and I consider Marshall a 100-year running back. I mean, I know a lot of players, and I've seen a lot of players, and I've never seen one with the athleticism, that Marshall Faulk has.
Marshall's 1993 rushing numbers, 1,530 yards, is said to be a disappointment. But he caught 47 passes his final year in college, a trait the scouts fawn over. The only question about Marshall was his attitude, a story that wound up in the sporting news after the NFL Combine workouts in Indianapolis.
I had to go buy the sport news to read it. I didn't believe it.
If you know Marshall, you know all of these all of these rumors and innuendos are false, and it concerns me more from that rather than hurting him as far as, you know, dropping him in a draft.
That story is history, and so could be the Saints' chances at Marshall. The Saints say they want defensive help, but wouldn't it be great if this Carver High Ram could wind up home? What better way to improve your defense by giving him a breather? That's page 1 in the football Bible of Jim Mora.
The crazy thing about Marshall Faulk is a lot of negatives started to surface after the combine. When he showed up and they said his weight room strength had dropped 20% since his freshman year, and then last week he goes out and runs a 4.33, and everybody says, oh, all of a sudden he's back. Well, where was everybody the last 3 years when he was out racing defensive backs to the end zone and, you know, showing estimated 4.4 speed? It's like this is the first time it was a realization all of a sudden this guy has speed. But that has kind of moved him back up to where the Colts are thinking about him at 2. Certainly if Cincinnati makes that deal with New England, ends up with the 4th pick, they have to look at him, and definitely Tampa Bay at 6. That's the last pick that he would ever get by, would be 6 with Tampa Bay.
St. Augustine's Sean Jackson left high school with a lot more fanfare than Faulk heading to Florida State. He successfully made the shift from quarterback to halfback, and he may now have to make another position change to make it in the NFL to fullback.
For a guy who had a great career at Florida State, Sean Jackson's had to deal with a lot of criticism. The one he's heard the most often is that he lacks NFL speed.
In the NFL, with his kind of questionable speed, he's going to have to be a small fullback, halfback, and kind of a good role player, good backup that you can keep around as your 4th, 5th guy that gives you an option at each position. But in terms of round, if he goes before the 5th round, I think it's where you can expect him to go, somewhere 5, 6, 7 in that area.
I don't buy that at all, but I guess, you know, every person has his own opinion, and you know, I don't see how they can knock a guy for my size with a lack of speed when I ran away from the entire Miami defense for 69 yards, and I just don't see how they say I don't have any speed. I could understand him saying that I don't have great speed, but if I lack speed, I don't understand that.
The former St. Aug quarterback spent the week in Mobile showing off his positives. The biggest is his versatility. After playing running back in college, he got his first taste of playing fullback at the Senior Bowl.
You know, I'm just taking it in stride. It really doesn't matter what position I play. I just want to play, and, you know, whatever I can do to get into the game, I'll do it.
I think he'll play fullback in the NFL, but he can play both halfback and fullback, which will help him. Anything you can do extra helps. The thing I like about him is he's got good running back instincts. He catches the football very well out of the backfield, and he's played on a team where it's not been an individual type situation. It's been team effort. So I think that'll really help him out.
Up next, we'll look back at the Saints' outstanding 1993 draft.
And we'll profile a member of that class of 93 who will get his chance in 94. Stay with us for more of this Saints Sideline.
You to experience training camp in La Crosse, Wisconsin. Stop by any Hibernia Bank location and register to win a weekend trip for 2 at Saints Training Camp. You'll eat with the team, have VIP status at practice, and attend a scrimmage with the New Orleans Saints. You'll also be treated to a Moonlight Riverboat cruise. So register at Hibernia National Bank to win the Saints Training Camp Sweepstakes. Brought to you by WGNO 26 and Hibernia, the official bank of the New Orleans Saints.
Mickey Rourke. An Irv Smith, then you get a Derek Brown, you get a Lorenzo Neal, then you get a Tyrone Hughes, not to mention an Othello Henderson and a Ronnie Dixon. An A grade. I don't think it was necessarily the best draft, but it was in the top 2 or 3.
Among the top 2 or 3, high compliment from Mr. Kuiper. Was it a better draft than in '81 when the Saints got Ricky Jackson and company? Only time will really tell about that, but without the class of 93, Alex, I think it would be safe to say that the Saints would have been a whole lot worse than 8-8 last year, and that was bad enough.
No, I agree with you. You know, the Saints class of '81 has a cumulative total of 9 Pro Bowl appearances. The class of '93 has 1 and counting, but of course, Tyrone Hughes went to Hawaii in February. But Hughes isn't the only Saint drafted last April who will play in a Pro Bowl.
3 Saints selections could be labeled great picks. What can you say about Tyrone Hughes? The New Orleans native went from a 5th rounder to one of the NFL's 2 or 3 best return men in 1 year. His Pro Bowl invitation is the first of what figures to be many for the class of '93. In the 4th round, the Saints nabbed Fresno State's Lorenzo Neal. Neal only played a game and a half, but when he was healthy, he dominated.
It certainly seemed to open up the offense when he was running the football, and that offense never did quite work the same after he left.
And the best of the bunch will probably turn out to be tackle William Roaf.
He's the most valuable player on this team. If you went out in the open market, he would get you more value than any other player on this team. He is going to be a Pro Bowl player for many years, barring injury.
While Roaf, Neal, and Hughes were great picks, 3 others are potentially great. 4th round running back Derek Brown, 7th round safety Othello Henderson, and tight end Irv Smith. The Notre Dame first rounder spent a year learning, but his blocking improved as the season went on, and 13 of his 16 catches came in the second half of the season. And here's a stat to keep in mind. From 1988 to 1990, when Jim Everett was at the top of his game, Rams tight end Pete Holohan caught 159 passes.
We got some good production out of some of our draft choices right away, and we've got some other guys that are coming along that we feel that will give us production in the years to come. So from that standpoint, yeah, you know, we were real excited about last year's draft.
Othello Henderson got 1 start as a rookie. He was the strong safety in the season finale against the Cincinnati Bengals. It was a trial run for Henderson, who figures to get every opportunity to win the starting job this summer. Tim Ezel has the story.
Second-year safety Othello Henderson is expected to be a big part of the Saints' defense of the future. But his NFL career didn't start off quite the way he planned.
Well, I was real anxious. You know, I thought I was going to get taken early on the first day at least, and then first day went by, it didn't get drafted. A little disappointment. I was kind of scared and everything, you know. So the next day I didn't watch the draft, and then I got a phone call from Jim Miller, and they told me that I would be their next pick in the 7th round.
It's not uncommon for the pure safety to fall in the draft. Most clubs want a guy who can play safety and corner.
It took me a couple days to get over it, but, you know, I just knew that I had to work a little bit harder, you know, come into camp, prove myself, and make the team.
Henderson came to camp eager to prove himself, but he suffered another setback with an injury in the first preseason game of the year.
When I got hurt in the first preseason game, I messed my ankle up, and I was like, when I was rehabbing everything, I was just watching everybody out on the field and everything. It just made me that much more hungry.
This offseason has been an important one for Henderson as he works to become a starter at safety.
This is my chance to get in shape, really get my work in and start to prove in these mini camps coming up that I'm going to be the man next year.
With a little experience from last year and another training camp in preseason, then we're expecting good things from him as well.
I'm just hungry. I'm ready to start. You know, I'm ready to get in there and make things happen.
I'm Tim Ezel for the Saints Sideline Special Edition.
Up next, we'll go on the bench with Buford Jordan and look at the top defensive linemen.
And another of Louisiana's best. We'll meet linebacker John Theory. Stick around for more of the Saints Sideline Special Edition.
May not be the first Louisiana native to hear his name called Sunday. John Theory, a linebacker from Opelousas, also figures to go quickly.
In terms of pure athletic ability, there is not a player in the draft more talented than John Theory. He's 6'4", 245, and runs a phenomenal 4.5 in the 40.
He's a guy of great size, speed, athletic ability. He covers the running backs coming out of the backfield very well. He's going to be one of the top 10 players. He's going to be a stud outside linebacker in the NFL, no question.
It's a great feeling, but you know, it's something I try not to even think about. I just keep on working because anything can happen. So I just be prepared if I do and if I don't. You know, I just be totally prepared for it.
How high will Theory go? Reportedly, Bill Parcells and the Patriots may take him with the 4th pick in the 1st round.
If he gets past there, I think Cleveland at 9 would be the ideal team. Belichick likes those big attack outside linebackers. Theory's in that mold, and I think that's where you could expect him to go.
It's all quite a turnaround for John Theory. Coming out of high school in Opelousas, only Alcorn State and Southern recruited him. Now, every NFL team would love to have him.
It shows that hard work, you know, also with the help of the good Lord, you know, anything is possible, you know. So it's a great feeling to have linebacker coaches come talk to you. Yes, sir.
John Theory will definitely be off the board by the time the Saints make their first pick. So who will get the call when the Saints make that first pick? For a little draft day forecasting, we go on the bench with Buford Jordan. We asked Buford to come up with a list of the Saints' top priorities this weekend, and at the top of Mr. Jordan's list, no surprise, Buford, you think the team needs help on the defensive line?
I think they do. You know, the line has been there for a long time. You know, a lot of the guys, Frank Warren, Jim Wilkes, who probably won't be back this year, that's a definite need for them.
Okay, next up on Buford Jordan's wish list is a young quarterback. Mel Kiper said this is a good year to get a developmental type guy they can bring along. Do you think the Saints will go for that?
I think they should, because, you know, you have two quarterbacks in Everett and Wilson, you know, that have experience, and Mike and Steve showed that maybe they're not the guys, so it's time to get rid of one of them and bring somebody young in to get the job.
Perhaps a Charlie Ward, which would be an interesting pick. See how that works out. And finally on this list, the team needs depth overall. Where in particular do you think the Saints need to go hunting?
I think right now the offensive line, after losing Kennard and then the thing with Jay Hilgenberg, that'll be a good place for them. And also linebackers, you know, on that defense, and, you know, DBs, because, you know, they don't have Keith Taylor signed, and Brett, he might be unsure because of the knee injury, you know, this past couple of years. So, you know, you look for those areas for them to try to fill. They only have 6 draft choices, so you're going to probably have to fill those needs, too, in the free agent market.
Okay, well, tell me a little bit about the loss of Derek Kennard. I talked to Tom Benson yesterday. He said that they really didn't give them a chance to come back with an offer to get Kennard. What about the loss of Kennard?
Well, I think that's going to hurt them, you know, because they had Kennard in that 3-guard rotation. Now you have 2. Now that's where it becomes important to either get, you know, a good draft pick that you might be able to put in there, or go in the free agent market and get a good, you know, proven lineman.
I tell you what, they'll be hard-pressed, my friend, to come up with the draft that they did last year. Last year was a stellar performance, wasn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is. You know, it's going to be hard to find William Rowe for anybody, you know, in this draft and make an impact like he did.
And amazingly, Buford didn't say the Saints should draft fullbacks. I can't believe it. They left that out of it. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Okay. As Buford mentioned, the Saints will definitely be in the market for defensive linemen. Doug Mouton takes us through a group that could be called Big Daddy and Company.
If you don't know this guy yet, you will soon. His name is Dan Wilkinson from Ohio State. They call him Big Daddy.
He is a tremendous physical specimen. I mean, a 313-pounder that can run 4.71, do 32 reps at 225, you know, and it has a mean streak that every team is looking for. Those kind of guys you just don't find very often.
After Big Daddy, it's really just a question of what you're looking for. Southern Cal's Willie McGinnis is a pure pass-rushing defensive end in the mold of a Chris Dolman. Bryant Young is more versatile. He can play inside or outside.
What I like about him is he's a leverage player, and his wrestling background shows up. You know, he can know how to move guys around the offensive line, and he gets good inside penetration. He needs to improve as a pass rusher, but he's a tenacious guy, just does not give up on a play, and he would be a quality player either as an inside defensive lineman or as a 3-4 defensive end.
Which makes him ideally suited for the Saints.
Well, I've watched the Saints over the years, and I think they have a pretty good football team, and I love to play in their system. It's just a matter of, you know, things working out their way.
Unfortunately, if the Saints want Bryant Young, they'll probably have to trade up in the draft to get him. The guy many experts are pointing towards New Orleans is Sam Adams of Texas A&M.
He's a dominating defensive lineman, and he's played on a team that teaches rough, tough defense. And he's one of the roughest, toughest guys on that defense. He is one hell of a football player. And if he is motivated properly, he is going to be a very good NFL defensive end.
But that's the key with Adams. Can you motivate him to be consistent? The guy who's been the most motivated since the season ended is Joe Johnson of Louisville. Johnson's entering the draft as a junior, and since the season ended, he's bulked up in the neighborhood of 25 pounds. He's now a legitimate high first-round pick. Johnson terrorized quarterbacks last year, getting 17 sacks, and he can play the run.
If the Saints thought about Joe Johnson, you would not say that that's a major reach, because anybody that's that big and that athletic and that young certainly would make sense at that point in the draft.
Johnson has what they call tremendous upside potential, meaning the sky's the limit. If the Saints want to help themselves on the defensive line in the draft, Johnson or Sam Adams may be their best hopes, because after the first couple rounds, the pickings get slim quickly. I'm Doug Mouton for the Saints Sideline Special Edition.
Up next, we're headed to Texas, where we'll go on the ranch with the boss. Stay with us for more of the Saints Sideline Special Edition.
Tom Benson is not all football and cars. There's another side to the Saints owner, but you have to go to Texas to find it, and we did, when photographer T.J. Pipitone and I visited the Benson Ranch.
It is an hour's ride outside Austin, just a stone's throw away from Johnson City. If you stand atop the mountain as far as the eye can see in every direction, it is all his. Almost 3,000 acres of majestic beauty. A landmass so large it could be a city. But it's not. It's Tom Benson's little piece of Texas. He has owned it for over 30 years. And this is where he gets away from it all. A captivating paradise of serenity, seclusion, and unimaginable splendor. It is his family-run working ranch where he raises cattle and exotic animals from all over the world.
I visited with some friends in Mexico, and they had some different animals, and I started getting an interest in that. There was something that was different. There was something that was exciting. Grace mentioned it was like being in Africa. Not just riding around. Not only do you see cattle and goats and horses, but you see something entirely different, and it's sort of very exciting, and it became a very exciting thing to me, and so that's how we got involved with it, and then we got more and more. Now today, up to nearly 500 head on hand, and of course we've sold and given away many of the animals.
The house, one of 3 on the property, is built from limestone found on the land. It is bright, comfortable, and warm. Tom Benson is known as a shrewd businessman and a tough negotiator. But the soft spot in his heart belongs to his family. Holidays are always special. These are the times the Benson family retreats to the ranch.
We invited everybody to come and enjoy it with us, and that not only to eat, but just to come enjoy the ranch. And our gates are always open to our friends and our relatives. And like Thanksgiving last year, I think we had maybe 60 people here, most of them relatives too, for dinner. A lot of people to feed for dinner.
The buffer in his life, his soulmate for the past 12 years, has been his beautiful wife, Grace, who says the ranch played an important role early on in their relationship.
It kind of started us out, really. When we were dating, we would visit here all the time, and it was so nice and calm and quiet, and I guess we discovered love. We had nothing else to worry us. We were alone. It was just beautiful.
When I was a lot younger, I used to enjoy getting on a tractor and plowing that field down there, but age has taken that away from me. I can't do that anymore. It's tough. I get out here with my family and friends and just don't worry about the whole world for a few days anyway.
Tom Benson's world would appear to have everything in it. But there is one thing he wants more than anything.
Oh, well, we got to win the Super Bowl to start with.
And we'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Benson for having us up there. We had a great time. Their hospitality, just really a beautiful place to be there on the ranch. Now, Ed, the excitement's about to begin. For the second year, we are sending... For the second year, we're sending a pair of Saints fans to La Crosse.
Stop by any Hibernia Bank location and register to win. It's a trip for 3 days, 2 nights in beautiful La Crosse, Wisconsin.
We'll announce the winner on Draft 94 Tuesday night at 7 right here on WGNO 26.
You must be 18 or older to enter.
No, that means you can't go.
I knew you were going to say. Up next to Baton Rouge, where a trio of Tigers will be waiting for their call this weekend.
And the rest of Louisiana's best, including former Shaw Eagle Johnny Dixon. Don't touch that dial. There's still a lot more to come on the Saints Sideline Special Edition.
If you're the third year in a row, the Tulane Green Wave will not have a player taken in the NFL draft. LSU will. 2 Tigers, maybe 3 will get picked. Doug Mouton has the story from Baton Rouge.
On the sideline, it's intercepted.
Anthony Marshall, Kevin Mawai, and Harold Bishop. All 3 Tigers have NFL potential. The best of the batch, for now at least, is Mawai. He may be the most versatile offensive lineman in the draft. At LSU, he started at center, guard, and tackle.
Last year I played against 3 first-round draft picks. Marcus Buckley from A&M, Todd Kelly from Tennessee, and Eric Curry from Alabama. And I held my own, and I'm holding my own out here. And I think after the last 3 days, I've proven to myself that I can play in the NFL.
The thing that's going to kind of make or break him in the NFL is he's not a real physical or power drive blocker. He needs to improve in that area, but his versatility has certainly put him in a situation of being a second-round pick, and his Senior Bowl performance really helped him out.
Mawai should be the first of the LSU threesome to go Sunday. The football program here at LSU hit one of its lowest points last April when, for the first time in more than 40 years, the Tigers had no players taken in the NFL draft. This threesome was watching, and they were not happy about it.
Last year I think a lot of it had to do with our team record. We went 2-9, and when you have a record like that, people tend not to look at you, and that's the disappointment.
Just because you go to a school that's nationally known, you won't be drafted. I mean, it made you think that you have to take care of your business in the classroom also. And what it really made me do is work harder. I mean, work harder in the weight room, work harder in the off-season catching the ball, and do the things that would help me put me in a situation so I would be a draft pick this year.
At 6'4", 250, Harold Bishop definitely has NFL size. He caught 41 passes in his career at LSU, but his strength is blocking.
Right now, I think blocking is my strong suit because really that's the main thing that I did here at LSU. I think that if given the opportunity to be in a passing situation, I can perform and produce. I just haven't been really in that situation up until this year.
He's shown that he can be a threat down the field, even for his size. But you saw some inconsistencies with Harold Bishop catching the football because of the limited use. But as a blocker, he's pretty good. And with that size and that physical ability, 4th, 5th round, you're looking at a pretty good pick.
While Bishop has moved up the charts, Anthony Marshall has fallen, despite a very productive college career.
Here's a kid, Marshall, had all the stats at LSU, big-time hitter, good size, but the 40 speed is what's going to push him down to the point where he could end up being a 6th, 7th round pick, or maybe even a free agent for that matter.
Even if Marshall doesn't get drafted, Bishop and Mawai will, which makes it a good year for the Tigers. I'm Doug Mouton, WGNO Sports.
Anthony Marshall is a pure safety who may find himself undrafted Monday night. Former Shaw Eagle Johnny Dixon won't have that problem. Dixon will get his call on day 2 of the draft, and so will at least a half dozen other Louisiana products. Johnny Dixon is a safety, but he plays like a linebacker. He'll need to work on his coverage skills to make it in the NFL, but this guy can hit.
He is a mean, nasty hitter, and you know when you come across the inside, he's around. He's the type of guy, you know, he comes with the disposition of being mean. You know, he chews that tires right when he gets off the bus before the game. So he'll get drafted. He is a very good, hard-hitting, strong safety.
So he'll get picked. It won't be early because the big safeties that have average speed don't go in the first 3 rounds necessarily. But you get into the 5th round, and even the 4th round for that matter, I think Johnny Dixon is one of the best hitters in the draft.
Dixon should get the call about the same time as wide receiver Omar Douglas. Douglas played his high school ball at Newman and really opened people's eyes when he outran Michigan All-American Tyrone Wheatley at the Big Ten track meet.
And the shocking thing was that even with all this production and athletic ability, Omar Douglas was not invited to the combine. So certainly at that point you figure he's a free agent. Well, then he goes out and he beats Wheatley, and he's been running in the 4.4 range. He's getting drafted. You can take that to the bank. So the question whether it's going to be 5th, 6th, or 7th round.
Another transplanted New Orleanian will spend draft day on the bubble. Cal's Lindsey Chapman from Everett High School. It's 50-50 whether Chapman will wind up a late draft pick or a free agent. Up in Monroe, a trio of players will be waiting for the call. Linebacker James Folston, number 29 here in the Hula Bowl, will get his early. Folston has speed to burn and figures to go in the 2nd round. His teammate at Northeast, defensive back Larry Wingham, should be off the board in the 3rd, and Indian running back Irving Spikes is on that bubble too. He'll be either a late rounder or a free agent. And the same could be said for Grambling fullback Eric Gant.
Defensive line. I mean, when you're talking about a defensive line where outside of Wayne Martin, you have very little to speak of in terms of definite talent. And picking where they are, if they can get a Bryant Young, if they can get a Sam Adams, if they like Joe Johnson, all of those picks would make sense. And I think you really have to start addressing that position if you're the Saints.
Now that's Mel Kiper's final thoughts on what the Saints will do in the 1st round. We pressed Mike Detillier to give us a prediction, and as of this morning, he was going to go with Sam Adams, the defensive end from Texas A&M.
Here's what I think is going to happen. The Saints have come out and admitted before the draft that we're looking for defensive linemen, okay? And that sounds right, but my guess is they're playing possum and they're going to go somewhere else.
Depends on what's left.
If you're looking for a defensive lineman, I've never known the Saints to really come out and show all their cards like that. So my guess is that they want somebody else, but they're trying to make everyone else think they want defensive linemen. They may wind up with one, but my guess is they're playing possum. And if they're not, we'll just blame you. It's no problem.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thanks. Remember, the Saints take in round 1. You can join Alex and me right here Tuesday night for Draft 94. Jim Mora and Bill Kuharic will also join us. It's everything you need to know about the 1994 Saints draft. That's Tuesday night at 7 right here on WGNO 26. I'm Ed Daniels.
I'm Alexander Laurent. We'll see you Tuesday night on Draft 94.
See you.
Saints Sideline Pre-Draft Special. Brought to you by Campo, computers, appliances, home and car electronics. Hibernia National Bank, the official bank of the New Orleans Saints. Pep Boys. WGNO Sports.
The Saints went out and got Wayne Martin a partner. Sackmaster Joe Johnson from Louisville. They also added speed with running back Mario Bates. In the next 60 minutes, we'll go in-depth into all 8 St. Louis selections. We'll talk draft, free agency, and the Everett trade with Jim Mora and Bill Kuharich. Plus, we'll meet Joe Johnson on Saints Sideline Draft 94 next.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for Saints Sideline Draft 94. I'm Alexander Laurent.
And I'm Ed Daniels.
You know, Fast Eddie, it appears that the Saints got what they wanted in the draft. They got their defensive end in the first round, and they got a young quarterback, and they also got some depth at a number of positions.
And the guys who are ultimately responsible for the draft, Bill Kuharich and Jim Mora, will join us to talk about it in a minute, Alex. But first, let's look back at Sunday's picks as the Saints added 2 new players.
The Saints' first-round pick was Louisville defensive end Joe Johnson. Johnson 6'4", 285 pounds. Number 94 here, he entered the draft as a junior after getting 17 sacks last season. Jim Mora and Bill Kuharich each said Johnson plays a lot like Wayne Martin. Then in the second, the Saints took Arizona State running back Mario Bates. Bates is big for a tailback, 6 foot 217 pounds. And can he run? Bates has been consistently timed in the mid-4.4 range in the 40. He's also entering the draft after his junior season when he led the Wildcats in rushing with 1,111 yards.
The Saints made their final 5 picks Monday. They got their young quarterback and in all more than 1,500 pounds of football players.
In round 3, the Saints nabbed Texas Longhorn Winfred Tubbs, a 6'4", 250-pound inside linebacker. Tubbs has played through a variety of injuries at Texas, but led his team in tackles twice. In the 4th, the Saints got their quarterback of the future, Idaho's Doug Nussmeier, who's 6'2", 210. Nussmeier is the 3rd most efficient quarterback in the history of college football. He's been favorably compared to the 49ers' Steve Young. He needs work, but he has a lot of potential. In the 5th, the Saints took Mississippi State defensive end Herman Carroll. Carroll is originally from Natchez. As a senior, he had 5 sacks and 80 total tackles. With the very next pick, they took UCLA guard Craig Nowitzki. Number 71 here for the Bruins, Nowitzki is big and versatile. He played every offensive line position in his college career. In the 6th, the Saints added some more speed, getting Texas Tech wide receiver Darryl Mitchell. Number 11 here for the Red Raiders, Mitchell caught 54 passes as a senior. And in the 7th, the Saints went huge, getting Nebraska offensive lineman Lance Lundberg. Lundberg is 6'5" and 305 pounds.
And overall, the Saints took 5 players on offense and 3 on defense. And it's pretty safe to say the top 3, Johnson, Bates, and Tubbs, can't help them right away.
I don't think it's a question of can. I think it's a question of must. These guys have to come in and get the job done. Also, in 1992, Alex, the Saints quarterbacks were Hebert, Walsh, and Buck. This year, it looks like Everett, Wilson, and Nussmeier. It's amazing how many quarterbacks have changed jobs in this league, and that's going to continue. If the Saints don't get production out of Jim Everett, they'll be looking again next offseason. That's a complete turnover in 2 years for the Saints at the quarterback position. We'll be back in a minute.
When we come back, first-round pick Joe Johnson will join us from Louisville. That's next on Saints Sideline Draft 94.
Thursdays and Fridays on WGNO 26.
When the Saints' first-round pick rolled around Sunday, they dealt it, trading down 1 spot with the Jets. The Jets traded the Saints their 5th-round pick to make the switch, and Jim Mora and company still got the guy they wanted.
The Saints have selected Joe Johnson, defensive end, Louisville.
We selected a good football player in a neat area, and I feel good about that.
Oh, I think we got
a quality guy, a guy that's very bright. He's a computer science guy that's close to graduation, scored very high. I mean, you compare him to the two people in the draft that went before him, and he broad jumped almost 2 feet farther than either of them. He vertical jumped more. He's bigger in his arms and his hand span, and he had 17 sacks, which neither one of those guys had.
He's still a youngster. He's only 21 years old. He's going to get better. He, in my opinion, is very comparable to Wayne Martin as far as physically and ability-wise.
I feel real good about him. His production is good. He tackles the ball carrier. He doesn't miss tackles. Besides his sacks, which is nice, his quarterback hits. Every game you see him against A&M and Tennessee, quarterback's getting hit in the back of the head legally, you know, clean shot because he beats people. So I feel real good about him.
From a standpoint of somebody fitting what we need and what we do, we felt like there was that there was a pretty big drop-off, and that if we waited, you know, or even didn't get Joe and traded down and took a defensive lineman later, that it would have we'd have lost a lot.
From Louisville, Kentucky, we're now joined by new Saint Joe Johnson. Congratulations, Joe, first of all. I know that you had a couple of days for all of this to sink in. Tell me how excited you are to now be a Saint.
Well, I'm very excited. You know, I'm just happy to have the chance to play in the NFL. And being chosen by the New Orleans Saints in the first round is probably one of the most memorable experiences I have in my life, and I'm very excited right now.
Joe, before the draft, did you think the Saints were that interested in you? How big was their interest before the draft?
Well, I've talked to the Saints earlier, like in the last couple of weeks, and I talked to the defensive line coach personally, and he told me that, you know, they were very interested in me. So I knew that the Saints was one team that was interested, but the way the draft works, that you could not bank on anything like that. It was just a matter of timing, and, you know, people trade, you never knew what was going to happen.
Right. Anytime a defensive lineman is taken high in the draft, it's because he can rush the passer. That's the big thing in this game. Is that why the Saints selected you, Joe?
Well, I can't honestly say why they selected me, but I do think that I am a good pass rusher, and I can also play the run. So hopefully it was a combination of things, not just one thing.
Okay, Joe, last year at Louisville, 66 tackles, 17 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. Tell me about your decision to go pro after just your 3 years.
Well, I was redshirted in '90, so I was in school for 4 years, actually. But I decided to forego my senior year, basically because I felt that I did have a good season. The team also had a good season. We went to a bowl, and I just felt that I was prepared to play in the NFL, and my parents were behind me 100%. So that played a large role in my decision. I just felt that now was, you know, a good chance, you know, a perfect chance for me to take the opportunity.
Joe, after the Saints selected you, they have a press conference, and Jim Mora and Bill Kuharich come out and talk to us. And one of the things they said is they compared you to a young Wayne Martin. What do you think about that?
Yes, I've heard that earlier. And, you know, I haven't really, I've seen Wayne Martin play a few times, but I haven't seen him play enough to actually compare me and him. So, you know, I'm not trying to be a Wayne Martin or, you know, any other person. I'm just trying to be the best that I can be.
Joe, tell me about what you think your biggest adjustment is going to be. Obviously, coming from college to the pros, and again, you're coming out just after your junior year. What do you think that adjustment's going to be?
Well, I think obviously I had to do some adjusting, but I think it'll be more of a mental adjustment than a physical adjustment. I think I'll just have to change my frame of thinking as far as, you know, I wanted to worry about class or anything like that. I, you know, concentrate on football more, but it would be more intense. So I think I just have to change my way of thinking and also my plans throughout the day as far as, you know, time management.
Joe, you're from Jennings, right outside of St. Louis, really in St. Louis, correct?
Right, it's in the city of St. Louis.
Right, so you're from a river town, and Louisville's a river town. I know you've never been to New Orleans, correct?
No, I've never been there.
What do you hear about this place?
Oh, you know, I hear nothing but good things about New Orleans. You know, people tell me it's a nice city. And we have a guy up here in Louisville from New Orleans, and, you know, you know, we always talk, you know, we talk about the Mardi Gras and other things that happen in the city. So, you know, I've heard nothing but good things, and I'm, you know, anxious just to get down there and see what it's like for myself.
Well, tell me how excited it is for you to finally know you're coming to New Orleans, to finally be playing in the pros, and again to be playing with the Saints.
Well, it's a thrill. You know, I'm just happy to be chosen to play in the NFL, whether it be the Saints or whether it be anybody else. So basically, I'm glad that it's over. You know, the waiting is over, and now I can just get down to business.
Well, Joe, and to use your words, get down to business. I know the Saints are counting on you. They have some need in the defensive line area, and they think you're one of the guys who can fill it. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Joe Johnson from Louisville. Joe, always good to have you with us, and we see you on Friday morning at minicamp.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Up next, the Jim Everett trade. We'll hear from the Saints' new quarterback when Saints Sideline Draft 94 continues.
Once again, the Saints will start the season with a new starting quarterback. Jim Everett was available at a bargain basement price, a 7th-round draft pick, so the Saints bought, bringing the much-criticized quarterback from L.A. to New Orleans.
Well, I think that you know, I've had a rap for being on a subpar team, and I was part of it. Affected me a lot, affected my teammates a lot. I look forward to having a change, being with a team which I think is definitely above par. I would like to say, I'd like to set things straight to knowing that when I put a good day's work in, that it makes a difference in the win column, which maybe it hadn't in the past.
I bet I do. Okay. Chris?
I feel so lucky to have the support from the people everywhere. I'm talking about from Buffalo to Florida to, but I didn't do it as that type of stunt. I did it from a reaction, a gut instinct. It's the kind of guy I am, and that's the kind of guy that I'm coming here with. I don't know why he did it. I have no explanation about all the reasons why that happened. But if I had to do it over again, I'd do it just the same. And if the people reacted differently, I'd probably still do it just the same. It was very laid back. It was something that I don't think that I ever got used to, and I don't think my teammates ever did either. You know, I came from playing in the Big Ten, where we had sellout stadiums. You play Michigan, you have 100,000 people. That's what football's about. Wild, crazy, the whole deal. I remember coming in playing in this dome, not being able to hear myself think, just wishing that I had that 12th man for me someday, and hopefully I will. What's the word, laissez-faire? Out of here. I want a little intensity off the field as well as it is on the field. That's fine with me. And I look forward to people appreciating what good football is all about. When you're looking at the entire game plan, you just can't make a living throwing the ball deep. That just doesn't happen. It sure helps make the living when you can't have that ability. The underneath pass, I think, is something, the possession passing game is something that has to go along right with the possession running game. But then when you have a guy like Michael Haynes, which I think you're making a commitment saying, we are going to test the deep water. I look forward to that. I want to get back to the point where I'm winning again. I'm winning, my teammates winning, my coaches winning. Over a period of time, I think that, you know, especially athletes that are professional athletes, aren't involved with a bunch of teams that are on losing teams. Very rarely is that the case. I won championships in high school. We were very respectable in college, and had a chance in the pros to go to the championship game. Those things are contagious. That's what you strive for. Performing good, yeah, that's okay. I mean, that's what's expected. Winning ball games, that's what you play for.
Back with Jim Mora. Jim, his detractors say he can't play anymore. I mean, you obviously think he can. What was the big thing when you looked at Jim Everett that sold you on Jim Everett?
Well, we've always been a Jim Everett fan, Ed. We've always, you know, of course, competed against him 2 times a year in our division, and we've always felt like he's a very talented player, a very good competitor, has everything you're looking for. He stayed healthy. You know, he's been very fortunate in that respect, having played quarterback position. Quarterbacks don't stay healthy, you know, much less a season. He stayed healthy throughout his career. So we've always felt like he's one of the top quarterbacks in the league. He's had some tough luck the last few years. He's played on a team that hasn't won a lot of games, and of course this has affected him and the reaction from some of the fans out there. But we think he's an outstanding player, and it's going to help us a lot.
I know you've been asked this question before. You can't go into the mind of another organization, but to trade him for a 7 to another team in a division, automatically, at least for me, the red flag goes up on that. Why do you think the Rams did that?
Well, I can't get into that because I don't know what they were thinking, but I do know that they were trying they just felt like it would be a good thing for them to have a change at quarterback too, and they knew the situation Jim had been in the last few years with some of the fan reaction and the criticism that he had taken, and I think that they felt like it might help their team to get a new guy in there. But I know this, that I talked to a lot of coaches that have coached him at the Los Angeles Rams, either in prior years or even who are on the staff now, and everybody had nothing but very positive, outstanding things to say about him.
Coach, when you talk about Jim Everett, he definitely has the ability to throw the long ball. Was that a consideration, and are you thinking about a little bit more of that? Is that in the game plan now?
Jim Everett throws the long ball. Wade Wilson throws the long ball. Mike Buck throws the long ball. Bobby Hebert throws the long ball. These guys could all throw the long ball. That had nothing to do with our decision to get Jim. You know, when you've got some speed at receiver, some guys that can threaten defensive secondaries deep, that affects your philosophy and your planning a little bit, and we're trying to improve that part of our passing game and our offensive receiver core with some more speed, so that'll be a part of it, but it's not going to be all of a sudden we're throwing deep all the time, because that isn't how you win football games.
Yes, he's been called sort of a precision type quarterback. What about the question of pressure getting over the line? You know, there was some question about after they get across the line, the pressure's on him. He has a tendency to sort of rattle a little bit.
Oh, I don't think so. He's taken a lot of shots back there the last few years, and he's handled it really well. You know, any quarterback gets rattled when they get hit, and it's our job as a coaching staff and as an offensive team not to let him get hit that much so that he can perform up to his potential.
Jim, would it be safe to say that here's a guy with a lot of ability that was on a declining football team, and basically you can't ask any quarterback to be a miracle worker, to do a million things, right?
That's right. The Rams struggled there for a few years. Now, people forget about, let's talk about the years when they won, when he was their quarterback right from the get-go, the years when he took them all the way to the NFC Championship game. He was the quarterback for those teams too. And they fell off a little bit, as some teams do. They have their ups and downs, and he happened to be there the last few years in some down times, and he took some criticism, and sometimes you develop a reputation, and it's hard to get rid of that reputation.
All right, Coach, usually we let the first rounder pick this one, but Joe Johnson is in Louisville. If you don't mind, we'd like you to draw a name out of the box. It's our Hibernia Bank Saints giveaway trip. Now, we're sending a Saints fan and a guest to training camp in lacrosse, Coach, if you will.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, that's on another channel.
The name of the person is Dorothy Whitehead of Slidell.
Okay, congratulations to Dorothy. She's going to be going to a training camp. Maybe she'll send in a few plays.
That sounds good to me. If they work, I'm all for
it. More draft 94 after this.
Coming up later, the rest of free agency.
But next, the rest of the Saints draft. We'll talk to the Saints Brain Trust about Mario Bates and company when Saints Sideline Draft 94 continues.
Saturday, May 7th, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Admission is $5. Kids under 12 get in free, and parking is free. Enjoy seminars, exhibits, prizes, and games. Over 100 door prizes, including a trip to a game. Meet Jim Mora, new St. Michael Haynes, and plenty of veterans. Bring your camera and autograph book. Get season tickets at last year's prices. Saints Fan Festival is sponsored by Gatorade, McDonald's, and Hibernia National Bank. Get a $1 discount coupon at participating McDonald's and Hibernia banks while supplies last.
The Saints Sideline Draft 94. It's time to go through the rest of the Saints draft. This is Mario Bates, the Saints' second rounder. Bates is 6'1", 217 pounds from Arizona State. As you can see, this guy can fly. He's been timed under 4.4 in the 40. In 3 years with the Wildcats, Bates ran for more than 2,000 yards. He had major arthroscopic surgery in '92 as a sophomore. He came back last year as a junior to run for more than 1,100 yards. Well, here's a guy, 217, runs a 4.4, size and speed, pretty rare combination.
Mario Bates is an excellent football player. He's got the ability to run inside and run over people. He's got the ability to run on the corner. And once he gets to the second level, past the linebackers, he's got the burst and acceleration to run away from people. He's a power runner, yet he's got good vision, and he sees the cutback lanes very well. So we're excited about him.
Jim, you got Michael Haynes in the free agent market, and now Mario Bates. An upgrade on speed. We've heard Jimmy Johnson. I guess anytime a Super Bowl coach says anything, everybody listens. We got to have people who can make plays. Has that always been the case, or is there a new emphasis on speed in the league?
No, there's always, football's a game of movement, and the faster you are, the better you are. If those guys that are fast are also good football players. You can go out on the street and find guys that can run fast, but they can't play football. So if you can get a combination of speed and movement and the ability to catch and run and block and tackle and catch and, do all those kind of things, then you've got what you're looking for. But football is a game of movement, and the more quickness and speed you have, the better you're going to be.
Reuben Mays was a guy who could really turn the corner for you and really helped you in the early years that you were here. This guy, does he have that type of speed, and do you see him as a pass catcher, or do you take him out after first and second down? Is he strictly a runner? Mario is primarily a runner. He does definitely have that kind of speed. I think, and he's bigger than Reuben. And, but he's not known for his pass catching ability. He doesn't have bad hands, but you wouldn't call them exceptional hands. So, we've got people that can play on third down. When it's primarily a passing situation, we've got other backs that can play on third down. If he can't, and I'm not saying he can't, we won't know this until we see him, but I don't think his hands at this point are rated exceptional.
Okay. Bill, round 3, you got a very productive player, Winfred Tubbs from Texas. He's had some injury problems. Tell me about those.
Well, Winfred had a rough year. It started in training camp where he was opening a window in his dorm, and when he was pushing it up, it slipped, and his hand went through the glass and severed a tendon in his wrist. And then he had to play with a cast on that. And then during the season, he had sprained his shoulder, and he hurt his other hand. So he always had these nagging injuries all year, but the thing that impressed us is that he played in every game. And he's a very tough competitor. He doesn't want to come off the field. We're excited about it. He's a big size linebacker who can stand in there and take on big offensive linemen, get off people, and make plays. Jim, does the signing of Tubbs lessen your need for Sam Mills, or does it affect it at all?
No, it doesn't affect it at all. We're still trying very hard to sign Sam. Sam would like to come back with the Saints. We'd like to have him back. All we got to do is work out a contract with him.
Okay, now round 4, you went for quarterback, Idaho's Doug Nussmeier. Most of the quarterback prospects were on the board. What is it about this guy?
Well, after the 2 top ones, Dilfer and Schuler, there was a drop-off, and there was a good group of middle round guys in the draft. And what I liked about Doug and what our scouts liked about Doug was his ability to compete. He's a good athlete. He's a big, strong quarterback. He's got good movement. He's got good poise in the pocket, and he played in a passing offense at Idaho. And another impressive statistic with Doug is his touchdown to interception ratio was 33 touchdowns and 5 interceptions this year. So we're really excited about having him.
Jim, Charlie Ward went undrafted. When you got to that 4th spot there and you took Nussmeier and you're looking over the quarterbacks, did you and Bill, as your whole staff, give any consideration to Charlie Ward?
We'd talked about Charlie prior to the draft, Ed, so we'd pretty much made up our mind on what to do with Charlie before the draft even started on Sunday, and we didn't think we were going to draft him at any point. His name kind of came up towards the end of the draft, but we just felt like we were better off selecting a bona fide football player, a guy that we knew would come. You know, there's some discussion about Charlie
playing basketball,
right, going to the Canadian League, those kind of things, and we felt like we didn't want to take that chance.
Steve Walsh will not be with the Saints. He asked for his release, and you acquiesced there. What about the future of Mike Buck? Will he be at training camp with the Saints?
Well, it's a little too early to tell right now. I can't answer that question. Mike's on our roster right now, and that's the way we've got to approach it. And that's the way we're taking it right now. You know, basically one day at a time.
Okay, Bill, you've had 2 consecutive picks in round 5. You went for defensive end Herman Carroll, Mississippi, and guard Craig Nowitzki of UCLA. Tell us a little bit about these two.
Right. Herman Carroll, Mississippi State. Pete Jenkins, former LSU coach, is his defensive line coach and is very high on Herman. He's an excellent pass rusher, and he's very quick off the snap, and he causes trouble early for an offensive lineman. Nowitzki from UCLA, what the thing we liked about him was his versatility. He's played tackle, guard, and center. He's played guard and center in the same game due to injury. So his versatility will give us added offensive line depth.
I guess at this time of the year, you always hear the word project. Are both of these guys projects? Are these guys who can help you down the line, or could they help you right now?
Carroll and Nowitzki?
Carroll and Nowitzki.
I think they got the ability to help us right now. I think it would be difficult for a guy like Nowitzki to come in and be a starter right away with the offensive line we've got now. You know, to beat out a guy like Port or Dombrowski, or now we got Ulanake at center. But he definitely would provide backup help, and like Billy said, when you got a backup that can play all 3 positions, and that really helps you. I think Carroll's a guy with the situation of our defensive line, if he's good enough, could come in and play for us next year.
Okay, Bill, the final 2 picks, you took Darryl Mitchell, wide receiver of Texas Tech. In the 7th, Nebraska tackle Lance Lundberg. Tell me a little bit about how you feel about the overall draft.
Well, I think we had a very good draft. I feel very happy with the players we selected in each round and where we selected them. I think we had a solid situation as far as getting quality football players and having them fit into our offensive and defensive scheme, and upgrading and give us some youth at those positions.
Draft people who evaluate this thing, and I mentioned Mel Kiper. I got to laugh about the thing with Bill Tobin, but the people who evaluate this thing, Mel and others for a living, say it was a good draft, but not as good as last year. What do you think they base that on?
Well, I don't know if it is or not yet. I think we'll find that out in the next few years. But I think where they base that is the fact that last year we picked higher in the 1st round, and we had 2 first-round picks. Right. We had a couple of 4th-round picks. You know, so you're getting more. You have an opportunity to get better football players early, and I think that is the key in drafting. So we didn't have that opportunity this year, and you're not going to have it every year.
Up next, the not-so-busy off-season. We'll talk about the relatively inactive free agency period. Next on Saints Sideline Draft 94.
Sideline Draft 94. 2 in, 2 out so far. Free agency hasn't drastically changed the Saints, but of course it's far from over. The guys who are now out of New Orleans, starting free safety Gene Atkins is now a Miami Dolphin, and starting right guard Derek Kennard is now with the world champion Dallas Cowboys. And heading to the Saints, former Falcon wide receiver Michael Haynes, former Miami Dolphins center Jeff Ulanake, and former 49er tight end Wesley Walls. Bill, you've actively pursued centers in free agency reportedly. You offered 3 other guys contracts before Ulanake. Was he your 4th choice?
No, not actually, Alex. We had them all grouped in together. They all had strengths and weaknesses, and we brought them in, visited with them, and as we went through the process, you know, you go from one to the next. But as far as order, we would have been happy and excited about any of the 4 that we were targeting.
Okay.
Jim, in February of '93, the Saints designated Joel Hilgenberg a transition player, and now apparently he won't be with you. That was a pretty dramatic fall from grace. What happened there?
Well, at that point, when we designated Joel a transition player, he still had another year under his contract. It also happened that 1st year of free agency, the offensive line free agent contracts really shot up probably more than any other position. And as a transition player, we would have had to pay Joel, you know, a tremendous amount of money. and we just didn't have that kind of money to pay to Joel, you know, under cap restrictions, and I'm not being critical of the cap at all, it's just a fact of life. So we removed the transition label from Joel, and then that didn't sit too well with Joel, as you can understand, because it
cost him a lot of money.
Cost him a lot of money, right. Sure. And then we started looking at some centers that were available in the free agent market, and we were able to sign Jeff Ulenake, and that's what happened.
Derek Kennard is off to the Dallas Cowboys. Big loss, little loss, medium loss? How do you?
Well, it was going to be very difficult for us to re-sign Derek again with cap restrictions and all. We just we're running out of money, you know, to get all these guys back. And so we kind of felt like Derek was not going to be back with the Saints anyway.
Bill, Michael Haynes seemed like an obvious guy to go after. Talk to me about the decision-making process in going after him.
Well, we wanted to add speed to the wide receiver group, and you know, we targeted 3 guys, Anthony Miller, Tim Brown, and Michael Haynes, and we felt if we could get one of those 3, that we'd accomplish our goal. And naturally, we really pushed hard on Michael because of the local aspect of him being a New Orleans boy. And we went out and recruited him, and everybody got involved, the coaches, myself, Tom Benson, and made an offer. And I was, quite frankly, surprised that Atlanta didn't match it.
Jim, were you surprised that Atlanta didn't match?
I had a gut feeling that they weren't going to, but it did surprise me a little bit.
Here's a guy, even if you don't throw the ball deep to him every game, just the fact that he's out there makes the defense respect him, and that's going to make things better for you, right?
Well, Ed, again, just because a guy has speed, it doesn't mean you have to. That he's only effective when you throw deep to him. You know, right. Some of the best plays that the best receiver in football makes, or 2 of the best receiver in football makes, a Jerry Rice or say a Sterling Sharp, are over the middle, short passes, right. Very short passes, and they'll break a tackle or 2, and they're off to the races. So I don't think throwing deep is you can't win football games throwing deep all the time, believe me.
And he caught 72 passes last year for about an 11-yard average, so he can go underneath too. Michael Haynes. Michael
Haynes can catch. He's a complete receiver. He's just not a speed guy. He's a complete receiver. He can do it all.
On the first day of free agency, Gene Atkins signed a $6.6 million contract with Miami and left. How do you feel about your secondary now?
Well, I'm a little bit concerned about our secondary because right now we don't have Gene, and we're not going to get him back. Brett Maxey and Keith Taylor, neither one of them are under contract. Toy Cook's not under contract. They're all unrestricted free agents. So right now we've got some very, very young players back there that we're going to have to, they're going to have to step up and play well for us if we don't get any of these veteran guys back.
He can cover, but he wants a lot of money, boy.
I don't know if he's in good enough shape.
I'll be back this year. Okay, Bill, now that the draft is over, you can concentrate again on some of the free agents. Can you fit any other guys under your cap now?
Sure, Alex. We have the ability to sign some more unrestricted free agents. And, you know, last night after the draft ended, we spent 3, 4, 5 hours with our coaches and scouts contacting the college free agents, trying to get some of those guys under contract. And now we'll go back to the unrestricted free agency, see who's still out there and who we could acquire and make room under the cap for.
Up next, we'll go through the rest of the NFC West. Who helped themselves the most? We'll find out next on Saints Sideline Draft 94.
Saturday, May 7th, 10 a.m. till 4 p.m. Admission is $5. Kids under 12 get in free, and parking is free. Enjoy seminars, exhibits, prizes, and games. Over 100 door prizes, including a trip to a game. Meet Jim Mora, new St. Michael Haynes, and plenty of veterans. Bring your camera and autograph book. Get season tickets at last year's prices. Saints Fan Festival is sponsored by Gatorade, McDonald's, and Hibernia National Bank. Get a $1 discount coupon at participating McDonald's and Hibernia banks while supplies last.
Welcome back to Saints Sideline Draft 94. It's now time to go through the rest of the NFC West. We'll start with the Atlanta Falcons. The Falcons had no first-round pick. In the second round, they took Rice quarterback turned wide receiver Bert Emanuel. But the Falcons really changed themselves in free agency. June Jones and company added offensive lineman Mike Zandowski from San Diego and 2 defensive backs, D.J. Johnson from the Steelers and former Chief Kevin Ross. Leaving Atlanta are Michael Haynes, Chris Miller, and Chris Hinton. And in trades, the Falcons added Jeff George and Chris Dolman and lost Mike Pritchard. Bill, it would seem the Falcons got better on defense at the expense of offense. What do you think?
Well, that's the way it appears with all the movement they did. They've acquired some excellent players on defense, and Chris Dolman and Kevin Ross and D.J. Johnson. They did acquire Jeff George in a trade on offense, and but they lost their two of their top 3 receivers in Haynes and Pritchard. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out.
Jim, Deion Sanders is playing baseball, and he's doing a pretty good job with the Braves. He's been gone for a half a season every year, it seems like, so basically the Falcons went out and got some protection, right?
I think so. In the secondary, it looked like they did with the acquisition of those corners. And I would like to see Deion be gone for the whole season instead of half. Is there any way we can extend the length of the baseball season?
Well, I tell you what, they're trying. Believe me, right now an 8-11 team in baseball is in first place. So, they're trying to do that. Looking at the Falcons situation, Mike Pritchard is probably going to leave after next year anyhow. Yeah. So that was, and he had indicated that to the organization. So basically they got a 1 for him. You'd have to consider that to be a pretty good deal, right?
Probably a pretty good deal. But again, you know, you got to look at winning now. And you know, if they feel like they could have, that Mike Pritchard was expendable for the '94 season and they felt good about getting the #1, fine. If it's going to hurt them in 1994, then they've got to have a little bit of concern, but obviously they made the decision that they felt was best for them.
1994 will be the year 3 of Ground Chuck in Los Angeles, and Chuck Knox did some dealing to help the Rams in the draft. They traded down in the first round and took Auburn lineman Wayne Gandy. Then 3 picks in round 2. They took Memphis State wide receiver Isaac Bruce, defensive back Toby Wright, and defensive end Brad Otis. In free agency, the Rams added Falcon quarterback Chris Miller and former Cowboy defensive end Jimmy Jones. Leaving LA are tight end Pat Carter, defensive end Toby Woods, and safety Michael Stewart. And in trades, the Rams got Nate Lewis from the Chargers for a 4th-round pick next year. And, of course, they sent Jim Everett to New Orleans. Though the Rams had a chance to take Trent Dilfer from Fresno State, traded down instead. Not a lot of great quarterbacks come along. I mean, why do you think they did that?
Well, I was kind of surprised that they passed on Trent, but I think that they brought Chris Miller in. They gave him a thorough examination. They felt his knee was solid. They invested a lot of money in Chris, and that's for the next 3 years, and that's the guy they're going to go with. And they've got Jerome Bettis from last year's draft. They had, as you mentioned, Wayne Gandy. He's an excellent offensive tackle from Auburn. Isaac Bruce was very high on our list as a wide receiver from Memphis State. And Toby Wright is a heat-seeking missile. So they've really helped themselves.
A heat-seeking missile. Always good to have a few of those, unless you're in the Ukraine or something like that. Chris Miller is a quarterback. Very talented, but if you look at his track record, he doesn't last the year a lot. Big gamble on the Rams to go with Chris Miller and not have a quality guy in waiting, Jim?
We had some concern about Chris's injuries that he's had in the past. I think you always do when you sink big-time money into a player, especially a quarterback, where you're going to have to sink big-time money. But apparently they brought him out, gave him a physical, had him work out, and they felt good about things. So they like him and are excited about having him. I know that for a fact because I've talked to some of their coaches.
Meanwhile, the San Francisco 49ers did plenty of dealing as usual. They moved up in the first round to get Notre Dame defensive lineman Bryant Young. Then, with their own pick, they took Florida State fullback William Floyd. The Niners did some dealing in free agency. They signed Charger linebacker Gary Plummer and Cowboy linebacker Ken Norton and lost tight end Wesley Walls. They did trade away 2 players, linebacker Bill Romanowski and former first-round pick Ted Washington. You know, Bill, in the last 4 years, the 49ers now have drafted 4 defensive linemen in the first round. Only one of the 3, Dana Stubblefield, really turned into a player. What do you think about Bryant Young?
Oh, we really loved Bryant Young. We would have liked to have the opportunity for him to be there on our pick so we could have discussed possibly taking him. He's a lateral player. He's got great movement. He can get off people and run to the ball. And he's got a lot of different techniques in pass rush. So, you know, they got a fine football player in Bryant Young. You know, Alex, they had 2 first and second compensatory picks going in the draft, so they had a lot of ammunition, and they used it to the best advantage. And at the top of their draft with their 2 1s and their 2 2s, 4 picks in the top 2 rounds, and they used them very well, and they got 4 good football players out of that.
Jim, the Rams traded with San Francisco, and the 49ers got up to get Bryant Young, knowing that you would have to play against a team twice a year in that situation, and knowing their absolute need for reportedly a stud defensive lineman, if you were in their shoes, would you have made that deal?
Well, I think what you have to do, Ed, is look at your own team and what you're trying to accomplish, and not what other teams are trying to accomplish. I think it's a mistake to worry about everybody else. And apparently the Rams had a plan for themselves, and they stuck with that plan and went along with that deal. You know, regardless of what they had to do to San Francisco, they had an idea what they wanted to do to improve their team, and did it.
Coming up next, we'll tell you where Louisiana's best are headed on Saints Sideline Draft 94.